Hey everyone, so it's been a little bit over a month since my last update, and boy have there been a lot of changes. I've added over 24 new commits, and that has equated to over 10,000 new lines of code. So with that being said, there's a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get on into it. So for those of you who watched last time, you all know that towards the end, I was kind of losing my sanity and I cut a few corners. One of those corners I cut was how I was communicating with my server from the app. You see, Android by default requires that you only use secure connections, so like, over SSL. But I disabled that so that way I could connect to my server insecurely. I wanted to change that so that way that wasn't going to be a potential security flaw going forward. And to do that, I utilized ngrok. So I'm not really going to go over ngrok and what all it is, but ultimately all you need to know is that it is now the service that sort of stands in front of my API and allows me to hit it securely. So I automatically get HTTPS connections, and I can do that from pretty much anywhere in the world. While I'm not going to go into all those details of ngrok here, the reason why I'm bringing it up is not because ngrok is a sponsor or anything. I mean, look down below. I have 400 subscribers. Nobody's sponsoring anything on this channel.
Hey everybody, so I actually have 450 subscribers, so thank you all so much. I mean, that number has truly increased since I started posting again, and I'm really excited to really work hard to grow the channel this time. So if you're really liking everything you see, I'd really appreciate if you hit the like button, hit the sub button. It means a lot. Okay, bye!
But I am going to be talking about ngrok in my new newsletter, and that's what I wanted to announce to you all right now. So this newsletter is going to be something that accompanies every YouTube video. So for every YouTube video, I'm going to take a topic out of it that I want to expand on a little bit more, and I'll be doing a more full write-up on it in the newsletter, and that will be free and available to everybody who subscribes to it. So this is going to be my way of being able to communicate some of the more interesting detail things of some of the technologies and things that I'm using in these videos. Don't necessarily make it into the video because it would just kind of make the video too long. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're interested in a really nerdy newsletter that's going to be really, really cool and really, really techy, then make sure you check that link out down in the description, and I'll also put it up here on the screen for you all to see as well. All right, so the shameless plug aside, the next thing I decided to work on was actually implementing the Firebase Cloud Functions. So I had touched on it in the previous video in that it was something I was thinking about, something I wanted to do, but I kind of just simply ran out of time. So, the TLDR for those who didn't see that video is I wanted to use the Cloud Functions so that way I could automatically create a user in my server's backend database, which is the Postgres database, and automatically delete them depending on what happens to the user in Firebase. So up to this point, that was very manual. So being able to have that automated was going to be key for having other people use this app. So now that's available. I was actually really surprised. It was really simple. It really did equate to writing two Node.js functions. I can complain a little bit because I'm not a Node fan, but it was the only engine runtime that was supported by the version of the Cloud Functions I needed to use. And because it was such a small amount of Node.js code to add, it really wasn't that big of a deal. And it gave me a huge benefit of not having to implement all that functionality myself from scratch. So the next thing on my to-do list that was sort of lingering from the last video was updating my data flow. So for those of you who did see it, I was like losing my mind at the end, and I talked about the data flow a little bit, but ultimately my app was calling functions and was manipulating data from the data layer directly into composable components themselves. And you're really not supposed to do that. It kind of violates a lot of the core principles of composables and how you're supposed to use them. So I moved all that. I moved all of that functionality into a view model, which essentially is still part of the UI layer, but holds the state and passes that state down to the composables for their rendering. So that it makes it a lot easier and has like a central source of truth now for all of the data manipulations that are going to happen in the app. This definitely was the largest amount of code I had to add at one time, and it's just because you have to do a lot of setup because it depends on dependency injection. And while I was familiar with dependency injection from a Go sort of standpoint, it works a little bit differently in the whole Kotlin Android ecosystem, and it's actually really cool how they've implemented it. And I'm really glad that I've now set all this up because it's going to make testing the app a lot easier in the future. So I don't have the time to go over all of dependency injection in this video and everything I learned there, But if that's something you're interested in, please let me know in the comments down below, and maybe I'll make a full video on that. Or maybe I'll make it a post on the newsletter, which you should totally go check out. And again, it's going to be linked down in the description. So now I know what you're probably wondering at this point. You're saying, well, Shandon, you're making a mobile app, but you haven't done anything to the UI really. I mean, up to this point, it looks atrocious. And you're 100% right. It does look atrocious, and I have not done anything on it. And there's a real simple reason. I hate UI development. I really do. I'm so bad at front-end development, and so I push it off every time. But the only way I'm going to get good at it is if I actually do it. So I need to get better about forcing myself to do that. But in either case, I kind of couldn't put it off any longer at this point, so I started on that. Because I'm no UI designer, I figured it would be easier for my brain to have a design that then I code instead of trying to code and figure out the design at the same time. So I decided to use Figma just to do the mockup. I use Figma just because it's what I'm familiar with, but if you all have any recommendations, please do let me know down below. But either way, I did decide to do the mockup in Figma, and here's what I came up with. So it's nothing too crazy, but it did give me enough of a reference to get started. Like all that core functionality that I was looking for is there, right? You have the bottom navigation pane, which allows you to go to the different views, and you have a different view for the recipes, the shopping list, and the meal plan calendar. After I got all that set up in Figma, I was satisfied enough with it, so I decided to actually work on adding it to my code, and here's how it came out. The funny thing was, it wasn't until this point that I realized I was actually missing some pretty key views from the UI. Namely, I was missing the recipe book view, which I added. I just made it a duplicate of the recipe screen for now, basically, because it has very similar functionality, but none of the backend for it is set up. And that's something I'm going to be doing later, so I didn't want to spend too much time on that just yet. Also, didn't have a good design in mind for it right at the moment. And then the larger and more important one that I was missing was the option to see the details for the recipe. So now, if you tap on a recipe, you will actually see the recipe detail screen. So it shows you, the ingredients, it shows you the instructions, and allows you to add it to the shopping list. I know this doesn't look great right now, and the real reason is because I didn't have a design in mind, and I haven't spent the time to really design it just yet. But that is something that I am going to do for the next video, because let's face it, the way this looks right now is pretty atrocious. I've said quite a bit in this video already that I'm going to do a lot of things in between this video and the next one. Is that going to be a problem? Anyway, now that I had what I consider to be a pretty good base for the UI, I decided I wanted to focus on the user interactivity part. So I added interactivity in a few different points in the app, but the one I'm going to touch on right now is on the meal plan screen itself, because that is where I imagine the user's probably going to spend the majority of their time. Also, it is the first screen, so it's easy to focus on. So from this screen, the user can select their date range for their meal plan. This is going to be changed, so that way it displays like weeks and allows you and limits you to selecting like just the weeks. But either way, I just use the default calendar component for now, so you can select that date. Users can also randomize their recipe selection for each day. And then the last little bit that users can do is they have a context menu option that allows them to share their plan. So this just shares it as plain text. It basically will send out the dates and the names to whomever you want to send it to. And then there also is an option to, at one time, add all your recipe ingredients to the same shopping list. So that's really handy. Ideally, again, this functionality is kind of rough around the edges, right? Like, to update the calendar, you tap and it pops up. To pull up the context menu, you have to double tap. To do the randomizer, you press and hold. So not exactly set on the exact workflow for those. But I think that's something I'm going to wait to just hear back from the user and sort of see what they feel is intuitive or what they would like to see changed. And while we're on the topic of the meal plan screen, there is one thing that you all might notice in some of this video of me running through it, is that the data seems to keep disappearing, and that's because it's not persistent. The data on this screen largely is not actually part of the view model state. I didn't add it to the view model just because I wanted to prototype this UI very quickly. I didn't want to add it to the view model just yet because the backend API doesn't actually feed any of this data to the app just yet. it kind of would have been more trouble than it was worth. So I decided just to take this shortcut and use some placeholder data for now. So all of these issues where you see everything disappearing in the background, that's not going to happen once I implement all that in the next version. So the last thing I want to go over today is just the looking ahead. So my goal for next time is to have the app in a state where a end user can actually, install and use it. And give me some, so I can start garnering some actual feedback from users. This really is going to involve polishing up the UI. So all those little glitches, bugs, and issues that I saw with the UI, updating those is going to be key. Adding all that backend server functionality that I've mentioned is kind of missing. That also has to definitely be there. And then I just have a lot of other various little to-dos here and there. So things that are like optimizations for the app and how data is fetched, caching information on the app, et cetera, just those little sort of things there. And I also really need to sit down and sort of plan out a larger roadmap for where the app would go next in terms of additional functionality, and figure out a good way of tracking things when I start getting feedback in from users. I know nothing I went over in this video is probably too ground shattering or too crazy, but I really want to call out that this effort that I've added now was so much smoother for me to do. Because I'm kind of over that initial hump that exists of just like understanding, a brand new framework and a brand new sort of, paradigm almost, right? And that is really, really cool. Now I basically just reference the documentation and I know pretty much exactly what I'm looking for and exactly where to go. And now I don't have to sit here and read through an entire guide and read through, page after page of this and search, endlessly for hours and hours for my answer, because I generally know exactly what I'm going for, which is really cool. Like the intuition that I'm building up for Android development is like really happening. And I didn't really think I would learn that much from this app in particular, just because it was so simple, but it actually is a lot more complicated. It's been a really cool journey so far, and I'm really excited to see where it's going to go next. I'm really excited to actually get it ready for users to interact with as well. So that's going to be really, really cool. I'm super excited for that. So thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you all taking part of all of the chaos that is this project and just walking along in this journey with me. And if you're doing something similar, I want to hear about it down in the comments down below. Would love to be able to check out other apps that you all are doing, because I'm sure you all have really great ideas, and it'd be really cool to sort of build a community of, new app developers, if you will. So again, if you really liked this video and you really like the content that I'm creating, please make sure, you like, subscribe, and share. But also, please do check out the newsletter down below. The first post is going to go up with this video, and I will be posting, a post per video, but I'm also going to post intermittently here and there, as there are other topics that I do want to, talk on or make a post about, but I won't necessarily make it to a video. Either case, if you're subscribed to both the YouTube channel and to the newsletter, you're never going to miss anything. So please make sure you go check that out in the description down below. And again, I'll throw the link up here somewhere for you all to see. So again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Bye.